Good evening, my fellow conservatives. It's time once again, Tuesday night, 9 o'clock, where we turn our radio dials all the way to the right to get the truth. Here on Pep Talk with me, Preston Pepper. Tonight on Pep Talk, I want to touch on several topics, all of which are of dire importance to the land we so love. I refer, of course, to the United States of America. The United States of America, where liberty echoes on the breeze and freedom is the coin of the realm. The United States of America, where a man can expect a fair day's wage for a full day's work. It's a place where America knows that hard work can make anything possible and that nobody ever drowned in his own sweat. Not that I know of anyway. I mean, nobody drowned in their own sweat. Well, everybody knows that except for the liberals, those high priests of entitlement who, if given the chance, would assign lifeguards to every construction site in the country, and it would all be paid for by you and me, the taxpayers. Enough said. We got a new sponsor tonight. We got a new sponsor tonight, and we are very happy. We are picking up some really hot sponsors. Our new sponsor is Bug Off Exterminators, and they're located right near Fairchild's Funeral Parlor out on Broadway in Nyack. And I really am very, very happy to have made their acquaintance, even more to have cashed their check. As they say, if a man with a wooden leg was dining at your home, would he have to worry about hopping home instead of walking? You know what I'm talking about. Rockland County is suffering from a plague of termites. While you feast at your table, downstairs another feast is taking place with the foundations as a main course. You can hear those little guys chewing away. A little bit more mahogany, my dear. You get the picture. And today I was talking to the owner, Miss Dee Dee Tarloff, and we had some very interesting chatter about, the exterminating business. It's been in her family for a long time. She stomped her first bug when she was only 3. And she said, Pep, people don't know the kind of damage that termites and carpenter ants are likely to cause in one of these old wooden structures. If you've got that kind of problems, don't try to do anything about it yourself. You are not qualified. You wouldn't know what to do, Pep. You got to get a pro. And nobody is more professional when it comes to the eradication of bugs than the people at Bug Off. So if you got a problem with bugs, why don't you just call up Dee Dee and she'll help you out. She did a great job for the boys over at Johnny Cakes, and, she's still waiting to get paid. That's how it is with Johnny Cakes, but that's the way it is in our little town. Tonight I want to speak about several points of interest, as I said. Firstly, I want to speak about a new opportunity for investment. An influence market, so to speak, and something that really reflects what I've been saying for so long. No country has the dynamicism of the United States of America. Nowhere on this planet are you going to find people better prepared for making the kind of jumps and leaps forward that are required in these difficult economic times. Last week, I was sitting around talking with a couple of the guys in the team I'm forming. I've been having some problems with the more orthodox elements of the Republican Party ever since Madam Hepzibah said, Pep, it's very probable that you are the reincarnation of Teddy Roosevelt, and it is up to you to drag the party kicking and screaming towards the center in a cosmetic move that will enable us to recapture the White House. A lot of people have not been too comfortable with what I've been saying about basically making a change to stay the same. And I'm not going to I'm just not going to let it get me down. I just can't let it depress me. I'm a big boy and I know how to play the game. So what I've been doing is assembling a new team of advisors and people who are hungry, who've got fire in their belly, as Sarah Palin used to say. And I'm not talking about cheap whiskey. I'm talking about ambition. USA, United States of Ambition is what I like to say, because this is the country where people from all over the world came to make their dreams come true. Don't you ever think different. Well, I'm sitting around. One of the key players on my new team is Mr. Rory Cripps. And Rory is an economist and a musician by trade. He's equally at home with a slide rule or a slide guitar. And we were talking and talking, and we were playing the old game that's very, popular with language teachers when they seek to teach the second conditional tense to foreigners. And that's, what would you do if you won the lottery? I mean, if you won a great big payday, what would you do to guard your money? I mean, inflation could eat it up. Who's that? Oh,
Fort Knox.
Oh my God! It's the angry
We're the Golders.
human.
Fort Knox. That's right. Hide it, Fort Knox.
We're gonna have to lock him up one of these days. But you know, I like to humor him. I've learned a lot from Dr. Quayle out there with lust and logarithms, and I'm going to use empathy with the angry human. He probably is a victim of a liberal home. It's a terrible tragedy. I myself am also a victim of a liberal household, which is why I go to Lebanon every chance I get. I go to a meeting every day sometimes. That's the kind of scars that my mother left on me, and I'm going to touch on that a little later. It's a story that's going to scare the pants off of you. Anyway, we were talking about hedges on against inflation, and right off the bat, Rory says, forget real estate. And you would expect him to say that because Cripps's research in the field has been instrumental in verifying the full extent of the Florida real estate debacle. In fact, he has been credited with coining a new term. It's called white whales. Until then we had white elephants, but the market got so bad that pretty soon all these white elephants were underwater, hence the term white whale. And the real estate industry and academia has Rory Cripps to thank for that illuminating terminology. He's a really brilliant boy. Love the guy like a brother. Now, anyway, old Rory had us laughing. I mean, he was telling this story about what's going on down in Florida, and he's telling this tale. He's telling this tale with such earnestness, I just couldn't believe it, about a house. Are you ready for this? A house that lost 75% of its value in just 2 months. Boy, were we having a yuck fest. And then we saw the look on his face and realized he was talking about his own domicile. I'm sorry about that, Rory. I don't like to laugh at your discomfort, but man, you seem to be able to make your misfortune everybody else's joke. Guy's got a great sense of humor, and that's one of the reasons I have him on the team. I don't want a bunch of people that don't know how to laugh. I mean, life is tough enough with these liberals trying to tax us out of existence. If we can't laugh at it, we're never going to survive. There's an old Jewish proverb. Rabbi Feldman told me, he said, the Jewish people would have never survived Poland if they didn't have the gift of laughter. And he said, Pep, we're all Jews, and the whole world is Poland. And that makes good sense to me, so anytime I see somebody's having a tough time, I remember to laugh. And that's the way it is. Well, anyway, we started talking about other things. We started talking about gold as a hedge, and we started talking about bonds as a hedge, and we started talking about antiques and collectibles, comic books, baseball cards, silver, art, racehorses, you name it, they were all mentioned, and they were all mentioned with about the same lack of enthusiasm as the previously mentioned product. It didn't seem we could come up with anything that was going to guard our treasure. Somebody mentioned a stable of mixed martial artists. They're very big on this, ultimate fighting sport that's becoming all the rage in places like Idaho and New Jersey. And somebody thought we should invest in a chain of tattoo parlors. Another person wanted to open up a school that would offer body piercing by correspondence course. I mean, we were really not doing too well, boys and girls, but we didn't stop trying because we're Americans, and Americans just keep at it until they get it right. It's like Winston Churchill said. Americans will always do the right thing. It's just that they've got to try every wrong way first, but they'll eventually get it. We thought about some other ways of protecting the money we would win in a lottery, and somebody even thought of franchising crystal meth labs. They came up with this great name for it, too, Easy Speed. That was the working brand name, and it sounded okay, but it still wasn't right. And then I just didn't know what to say, and I said jokingly that, well, if I had the money to invest, I guess I'd buy myself a few crooked local politicians, as they could guarantee me access to bloated municipal contracts. At the mention of those words, as I uttered those words, everybody at the table stopped talking at once. And Rory stared me in the eyes and he said, "Pep, you just hit the nail on the head." And I said, "What nail?" He said, "Pep, you just hit the nail on the head with what you said about buying those politicians." And I said, "Well, you know, it occurs to me that Bubbles' dad always bought politicians. He thought they were a good investment. He used to keep them in the pool house where I was bunking, and that's why I thought it might be a good idea. I mean, you know, buy a couple of politicians, particularly if they're on a steering committee." And Rory says to me, "That is the best idea I've heard since my last beer." So we started thinking about this. You know, if you have the right access, you can get into some of the most lucrative economic activities on the planet. Highways to nowhere, bridges over dry riverbeds, unseaworthy icebreakers, and tanning equipment for the Pentagon. All of these fantastic business opportunities for men who have access. And they are activities that keep the free market free. Free, that is, of outsiders from the 90%. Now, we're thinking about this, and then Rory says the problem is, as he sees it, and he sees these things incredibly well, he says, the influence game was still operating more or less as it had in the 19th century. Rory's a sharp guy, no doubt about it. You know, the Cato Institute and the Heritage Foundation and all of these big think tanks. Undoubtedly, they've got some real light bulbs working there. But, be that as it may, you just give old Pep, Rory, Steph, that truck-driving son of America, Richard and Blake, and I don't care. We're as good as anybody else who's living off of Bubbles McAdoo's largesse, I'll tell you that. Well, anyway, Rory says, imagine for a moment, just imagine it. I want you all to close your eyes. I closed my eyes. I said, "Rory, are my eyes closed enough?" He says, "That's good, Pep." He said, "Everybody else, close your eyes, and what I'd like you to imagine right now is a commodity market, a commodities exchange like the one in Chicago, but instead of dealing in pork bellies and cotton and orange juice futures, we're going to be dealing in political influence." Wow, that's an amazing concept, isn't it? We are going to modernize corruption. That's an incredible thing. Rory, I said, that's incredible. You know, we could even, I said to him, sell futures with election results as the unknown variable, and by fixing elections the way they did down in Florida, we could probably corner the market. Well, we had to get some kind of model on the table, and nobody better for this kind of work than Stephen out in St. Louis, the truck driving son of America. We called Stephen out and we caught him in his truck. And we said, Steph, after that model you constructed during the meat crisis, you are the guy most indicated for putting this thing together. And we explained what we had in mind. And he loved it. He just loved the idea. He said he'd ballpark something right up while he was making deliveries. And I'm waiting. I'll probably get a call for him after the show. And he'll start outlining what he's got in mind. It's going to be a fabulous idea because... can you imagine the possibility this is going to open up? Now ordinary people like the people out there, the good American people who are right now listening to Pep Talk, will be able to buy political influence, a product that was long denied to people who were merely on the outside looking in. Not any longer. They're now going to be able to buy political influence. And I'm not referring to mere aldermen and deputy sheriffs and dog catchers and sewer inspectors. No, with the type of package that my syndicate is proposing to offer the average Joe in the streets of America, the people who listen to Pep Talk, the small R Republicans, as Rory is so fond of calling them, will be able to buy parcels of senators, congressmen, and cabinet members. And you know what Rory also said? He said we could package just the way the banks had packaged pieces of mortgages before the liberals invented this silliness about a subprime hoax merely to punish hardworking people like Jimmy Demon. So that's more or less what we're up to with this. I think it's a great, great opportunity. In fact, you know what? There's a certain irony to it because while Wall Street considers the fate of the Facebook IPO, we plan to launch a firm that will absolutely revolutionize the way politicians are bought and sold, permitting the political class to raise far greater amounts of money and at the same time giving the public greater access to government contracts that are the highway to success. Can you think of a better project than that? We are going to make it possible for Americans to participate in government by ownership of groups of different political entities who have their fingers on the button that makes America work. It's a great idea, and I hope when we're selling, you guys will be heating up the phone lines and calling old Pep and his associates to purchase your influence, to purchase a piece of the American government just the way the big boys do. I am not going to keep you people outside the tent. I've said this many times when I stood up for the gay marriage business, when I stood up for other minorities who I felt had just as much right to pay Pep and the Republican Party their hard-earned money as anybody else. I feel that a Republican Party that isn't run like a store, that doesn't let the public come in and spend its money, has no right to exist. And that's the way I feel. That's the kind of small R republicanism I have repeatedly lobbied for, I have fought for. You know, old Pep, I am out there, wham, pow, zap, fighting for the little guy. I want the little conservative to have just as much right to all of the things that make America great as the big guys up on the hill. And if they don't like it, they're going to have to come over me. That's all I got to say. Enough said. It's a daunting task, but somebody's got to do it. In the meantime, I want to tell you about something else I've been up to. You know, you people who listen to Pep Talk, that, you know, in spite of my talents, my abilities, my influence, and my beautiful wife and all of her money, I'm just a regular person like anybody else. I'm just flesh and bone. And beyond that, I'm also a man of emotion, a man of feelings. And I've led a pretty difficult life. I'm referring, of course, to my childhood, where I was brought up by Red Pepper and my liberal mother. My mother, as you know, was a victim of liberalism, and my father, well, he was a rather distant fellow. Because of this, Bubbles has been talking to me, and she said I should start seeking out help, that I should get myself some psychotherapy. And, well, we spoke about this, and at first I wasn't really interested in therapy. I thought I had basically beaten life on my terms. But Bubs was very insistent, and, well, finally I decided, okay, what have I got to lose? What have I got to lose? So now I'm back with an old friend of mine, Dr. Robin Gretsch, and I'll be frank, it's heavy stuff. This therapy is heavy stuff, as the sessions have stirred up my curiosity, and they've caused me to delve into my family history and uncover a dark secret that I think is going to scare the pants off you. What I'd like you to do now is to sit back in your chairs and take a deep breath. I'm going to tell you something that is probably going to scare you like you've never been scared before. As we all know, Bubbles has me with this therapy business, and she says the problem has always been my father. I'll admit my father, Red Pepper, is a difficult man. He's willful, he's arrogant, he's narcissistic, generous, charming, and petty, all in one tightly wound package. He could, as my brother says, settle the conflict in the Middle East in the morning and have another one going with Switzerland by noontime. He's so competitive that when I had to write compositions as a boy, he'd write one himself on the same theme to show me how it should have been written. Who's better, he'd ask me. And I'd be driven to tears. Years later, I called him on it, and he said, hey, mine was better. I was 9 years old, I told him, and he said, no excuses. Lord Nelson sailed at 11 years of age. Well, because of this and the fact that my mother was a liberal, you've already heard how she passed away screaming about workers' rights in a North Carolina madhouse, Bubbles wants me to get this therapy. She loves therapy and still sees the same child psychologist she went to as a young girl. So I'm off with Dr. Gretsch, and him being a rather unorthodox type of therapist, the first thing he suggested was that I look through family documents and photos to refresh my memory of the old days. I've moved around a lot in my career on radio, so it's hard for me to find things, but what I do have is a couple of old leather valises, which I've carried around for years, in which I've stored my mementos and other things. It was very difficult to do this. I would rather face a whole phalanx of perversion, also known as the Democratic Party, than deal with childhood issues. But Bubbles says I'm being very brave, and so I'm continuing. The saddest thing for me was the fact, at first, that most of the photos were not of me and my father, nor were they of me and my mother, but of me and Bingo Johnson. I guess, as I've said last week, Bingo was more of a father to me than my own father. That's the way of life. I found letters, and I found old report cards. I found all sorts of stuff, and most of it was rather unimportant. I was at it for hours with the stuff strewn all over the floor in the pool house, and just when I was getting ready to pack up, I chanced to happen on an envelope that I had never seen before. An envelope that I had never seen before. I asked myself, what is this? I've never seen this before. I picked it up and I looked at it and I said to myself, what is this? I've never seen this before. So I opened up the envelope, and inside were several letters. I started reading them, and they were extremely intimate. And they told a story of betrayal that exceeded anything I could have imagined. get ready for this. This is gonna scare the pants off of you. For in these letters, what these letters contained was information that said that my own mother had been John F. Kennedy's paramour. My sweet, ever-loving, blue-eyed Republican God, the thought of my mother in the arms of Mr. Liverell. Oh, God, I got dizzy. I slipped and I fell right in the swimming pool. Later, I got out and dried. But I was shocked. I was visibly shocked. I thought about it for a while, and then I called up my father. And for once I demanded an answer. I said, "Pop!" I said, "Did you ever know that my mother, your then wife, had been John F. Kennedy's lover? And that she and he were going to run away. He was ready to leave not only Jackie, but Marilyn Monroe as well for her." My dad said, "Who told you that ridiculous story?" And I said, "Don't you play that one on me, Pop. I found letters, Dad. I found letters in Mom's own handwriting." And he paused, and then for once in my life, Red Pepper told me the truth. He said, "Damn it! I told Bingo to destroy those letters. Only one time he had to let me down, and it was..." I said, "Dad," I said, "Bingo couldn't destroy those letters. He knew she wanted me to have them." "Son," my dad said, "I hope you're sitting down, 'cause this is a whale of a tale. Yeah, they were lovers, and I warned her she was playing with fire. Jack was too." "What do you mean Jack was too?" "It was about his father. Joe Kennedy was furious at the idea. He'd spent his whole life trying to get his son elected, and he wasn't going to let your mother drag his son down. Apparently Jack wanted to divorce Jackie, marry your mother, and Joe is crazy. He even threatened his own son. He said to him, 'I'd rather see you dead than go through with this.' Dad, are you saying that Joe Kennedy had his own son murdered?" "Jesus, Pep, it wasn't supposed to be that way. Oswald was just supposed to wing him. But things happened. That's why they had to invent the whole cover-up. Jack Ruby was forced to act. If not, they would have killed his family. And then they invented the second gun theory. Oh my God. But Dad, how did you know?" "I can't say, Pep. If you knew, I'm sure that not even all of Bubbles' money could protect you. Me, I have an insurance policy. That's all I'll say. But why didn't the press find out? Why wasn't the press aware of this affair?" Pep, they used a beard. And the beard was Adlai Stevenson. They had everybody thinking your mother was stepping out with Adlai Stevenson. And when Jack was murdered, your mother vowed to tell all, so the Democratic National Committee had her committed. Damn, it hurts to tell you this. I wish Bingo hadn't disobeyed me. You know I loved your mom, Pep. But she got lost. Oh, those Democrats, they took their cues from the Kremlin back then. Oh, Pep. Maybe I should have done something. But I had a business to run. And that's my story. That's my story about my poor mother. One more victim of the Democratic Politburo. Just one more ghost in the gulag. And that's the reason that I cannot stand liberals. Those two-faced, hypocritical, closet communists who want to take over America and turn it into some kind of concentration camp, but they're never going to do it. I am going to fight them tooth and nail to the end, I swear. I swear on the Holy Bible. I swear on my mother's memory that Preston Pepper never, ever concede in this battle for liberty. And I hope that I have the support of all of you people out there who I love like my own kin. Don't be fooled by anything they say. They know only how to hurt. They know only how to lie. I'll be back next week. But think about what I've said today. For years you wondered what happened in Dallas. Now you know. God bless you. We'll be back next week. This has been Pep Talk.
Mike's on.
Oh boy. A little more psychosis.
It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com.